I didn't know you were 29, 28.
29.
You're the youngest.
Yeah.
Do you want to go
Thank
get
you.
us some, what is it?
Out of this,
What do you
you're the
want?
youngest, but you look the oldest.
No, I think I said love the handsomest.
Welcome back to DaDen. I'm your host, Masashi, and I'm here with Jayden.
What's up? What's up? We're back again. We didn't go anywhere before, but we're still here now. Yes, that's right. I am Jay. I am DaDen and DaDen.
All right, last time we talked with Doug. We are here with Doug once again.
Konnichiwa. Oh, kia ora.
Kia ora,
ora.
konnichiwa. Yeah, good to have the brother back, Dougie. Thank you for giving your time for us again for today.
No worries.
Last episode, we talked about you, Doug, as the person.
Yep.
Your journey from Japan to New Zealand, back to Japan. Talking about who you are as a person. It was really cool to see the inside of you.
Thanks, man.
And you're welcome, brother. And today we want to talk about you as the translator, you as the guy in rugby, and you as the podcaster.
Yep.
That's what we want to get into today and talk
Nice.
about more. But before we start, are you a dancer?
I'm not a dancer.
No. Are you a dancer? Do
Why?
you dance?
Why?
I'm just wondering, do you dance?
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm
Are
scared.
you really sure? Because I've seen a couple of videos of you waltzing and salsering and tangling.
I think you've. This is a common mistake that a lot of people make of me and a very similar person who looks like me.
Yeah.
Who another good friend of mine, translator called Josh, who is a very good dancer. He's the actual dancer. I just look like him.
Come on, you guys look similar.
Yeah.
Really?
I remember when I first saw it, I thought it was you.
Oh, really?
He's pretty much like the same as me in terms of like being half Japanese, but his dad's Japanese, and so he grew up in Japan, so kind of like the opposite in terms of that. But yeah, we used to go like in our single days, we'd go out and just pretend we're brothers, and people would obviously believe us. He's a very good mate of mine and a very good translator. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could dance like him. He's an amazing dancer. He's been in competitions and stuff. So
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I remember I tried to get some backstories on you, and everyone was coming back, oh, yeah, he dances. And I was looking, I was like, I think that's the wrong translator, guys. Wrong translator.
Once I got like from a reporter, he messaged me, he's like, oh, I saw you guys took Laidlaw off, so why'd you do that? I was like, oh, I don't actually work for the Shining Arts.
Yeah, Urasa team.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, with a mask on, you guys look similar. I'm like, yeah, I've got that lot. So I partway through when you're saying, I was like, I know what you're trying to do. But yeah, it's I wish I could dance. And if you can teach me, that'd be great. But yeah, if you want to see a great dancer, go Josh Keita Suzuki is his name. So
He's another translator, though, another translator here in Japan. Is he half?
yeah, he's half Kiwi, half Japanese, I think. I've had him on both my podcasts, like the Japanese one and the Kiwi one, but English one. But yeah,
Kiwi.
yeah.
You can call it Kiwi.
Yeah, it's all Kiwi accent. But he's very outgoing, he's a very cool guy. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting him on.
So good to talk about so you're talking about Josh as a translator, but yourself, you're also a translator within Japan, especially through the rugby. A lot of rugby teams, especially top teams here in Japan. So tell us a little bit about your job as a translator for your journey from your first team to your current team. Tell us about yourself.
So yeah, last week I talked a bit about how I kind of got the opportunity. So yeah, a friend of friend or family friend was an agent over here. So he just said, just send your CV to everyone. See, I don't think they really represent too many translators. Normally translators represent themselves, but so he basically became my agent and sent my CV everywhere. And like I said, I was trying to learn Japanese while I was kind of trying to find a job. So once I got the job, I was hopeful that I'd have enough Japanese. A few people who I talked to, when I said that's what I was trying to do, they asked me if I'd studied for it. And when I said no, they kind of looked at me and were like, oh, well, you're not going to be able to do it if you don't study, if you don't learn how to be a translator. So that kind of made me a bit worried, but I just kept trying to get my Japanese up. I kept playing rugby just socially, just so I could keep the lingo. Japanese rugby's got its own language as well, so even if you know both languages, if you don't know what Japanese words are like in the rugby scene, then you'll probably struggle. So I just try to pick those up. And then in 2017, Coca-Cola Red Sparks, who are a team in Fukuoka, their manager came up, or their recruiter came up, had a chat to me, and said he's willing to give me a chance. So went down by myself to Fukuoka, tried to find a flat, struggled a bit because of my full katakana name, but eventually got a house. And then
did the team help you set that all up, relocation?
Not really. I think they might have given me about sanjuman, so 300,000 yen, as kind of like a relocation bonus thing. So just to help set up with a house and furniture and stuff, which was obviously very helpful. And then, the biggest thing was just trying to find a house before I went down there. I went down, looked at about 5 places, picked one, had my full Japanese auntie as like the guarantor. And then the next day they don't have to give you a reason, but they said, oh, sorry, you didn't get it. And then I just picked my next place without going down. I just saw the pictures and thought, this is me. And then managed to get it, and thrown into the deep end in terms of translation. And here I am 7 years later, kind of thing.
Originally, what were you trying to become like in Japan? Like, what job were you pursuing before translating?
So I only wanted to come over to Japan for a few years just to see family, experience that side of my culture, because I'd grown up pretty much in New Zealand apart from a few years when I was younger. So I really wanted to learn about my culture, and I thought it would be a lot harder once I get a full-time job. So I thought I'd just come over. I knew it would be easy enough to teach English for a bit, and it would give me freedom to kind of travel a little bit as well. I never had plans on staying too long, but once I found out I might be able to be a translator, I started studying a little bit. And then like I said, I think I might have said previously, I gave myself 4 years. We had the World Cup in Japan in 2019, so from 2015 until then, I pretty much just told myself if I don't make it by then I'll watch the World Cup and then go back to New Zealand and find a real job. But managed to find one after a couple of years, and here we are.
Nice. How was it translating for Coca-Cola?
I think they were around for about 50-something years, but so I was there from 2017 till, I want to say 21. I was 4 seasons there. When I first started, because they didn't have, some teams have, a head translator, then assistant translators and stuff. So some people go in as almost the understudy, and they might learn things and they understand how it works. So I just went in. I was the only translator. Had no idea what I was doing. I think my first job was picking up the coach with the manager at the airport. So I just kind of, said hi to him, told him what things maybe you need to buy for the first night, just so you can start living. They had their own apartments and stuff sorted from the company, but they had to pay for it, but it was all kind of sorted for them. And then I remember the first meeting, it was about Coke, like business stuff, because all the boys pretty much were employees. So in this meeting where I had to translate for the head coach, it was talking about Coca-Cola business models and what they wanted to do, and I knew none of the words. Like, I'd never been in business in Japan, and a lot of them were only words that they use in Coke as well. So I was just like, man, I've got no idea what we're talking about here. Then they kind of ended with being, we want to be top 8 or something in rugby, so I was able to translate that part. But I remember biking home, like pretty much almost in tears. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, I don't know anything. But the rugby side, it was a bit better because I knew I'd played rugby before. I knew the calls and stuff. It's a whole different level playing club rugby where, you're hungover and you're trying not to spew. And then this is
haven't trained all week.
Yeah.
You show up on game day.
If you show up first, you're like first in the team. So if you're a bit late, you have to hold the flag on the touchline. But it was a whole different kind of story. All the boys worked, all the Japanese guys worked until maybe 2 p.m. and then we trained from 4 p.m. But learning all the structures and all of that was just a whole different ball game. And it was real a challenging first year. and then you've got things like press conferences where you've got to use keigo or formal Japanese, and I'm used to listening to my mum speak Japanese to me, so that obviously wasn't formal. So some of the words, like Jay, you might have heard, like how you or the reason for the win. It's like there's ways you can say it in Japanese, but then you might say like shoin, which is like the two kanji, win and the reason. And I never heard that word before. I was like, but I knew like it was a game that we won, so that like, what was the reason for this? So I could kind of guess it. But there was one, I think our third game, the reporter went to one of our managers afterwards. He's like, I didn't really understand what the translator was trying to say in that question, so could you explain it to me? And I heard that, and I was just like, oh, like it's hurt like my confidence, but it kind of gave me motivation. And I was like, oh, I'm not at the level I need to be. So I just worked harder on my keigo and worked harder on my Japanese lingo, and slowly improved. And then now I feel a little bit more confident. I know what I'm doing, but it was all kind of self-taught. You just make mistakes. And mistakes are the best way to learn. So even now I'm just trying to use new Japanese that I might not have heard. And if I make a mistake, everyone's nice enough to, correct me. And then that little bit of embarrassment makes you remember it. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but especially those first few years when I didn't really know what I was doing, it was a tough kind of roller coaster, I guess I'd say.
It's interesting because like I've translated before as well, because for my university, there were a lot of foreign like parents that come over to watch their kids go into the university. So I had to translate for them what the whole thing was about. So I really know how difficult translating on the spot can be. It can be very frustrating, and it can be very pressuring as well. So I'm wondering, like, translators, usually you need to you need to be trained to be a translator in a way, especially sports, because there are a lot of like not just like rugby terms, but like you said, like press conferences, there are a lot of like terminology that you have to learn in order to let the press know what the players are trying to tell the press. So how did you like study like that, like Japanese itself, to improve on it? Because I'm sure when you came in, like you weren't very fluent in the language itself. So I was wondering how you kind of studied it.
So yeah, a lot of it was just like I think I said in the last podcast, my philosophy is fake it till you make it. But a lot of it really was like, you can get the point across, and then you're like, man, sometimes like in team stuff, obviously, if you make a mistake, it's not good, but it's a little bit in preseason, it's a little bit more forgiving. So it's just making mistakes, or like just saying things the way I knew how to say it. So it might take longer. I'm using maybe more kiddie language, I guess you'd say. There'd definitely be a faster way if I knew the term for this. I think one of the first ones, so I didn't know consistency, which is like ikkansei, but I didn't know that the first year that I went in. So I was just like, like nami ga nai yoni, so you don't have waves in your performance. So it kind of got the point across, but then afterwards, Japanese guy was like, you actually say ikkansei for that, and that's how I learned that. And then from there, once I did a few press conferences, I was like, man, I need to be better prepared for this. This is something that I've never studied for, so I didn't really know who to go to. A lot of stuff I do was watch interviews of, say, like Michael Leach getting an interview on TV, and just look up on YouTube like rugby interviews, like post-match interviews, and then you'd be able to hear a lot of the things that people were saying, and I try and translate it there while the translator was translating, and then seeing if what I said was similar to what they said, kind of thing, and just practicing myself. And we also had a Japanese teacher for the foreign players at Coca-Cola, and I kind of talked to him and said, obviously I don't need to learn the itadakimasu and stuff or maybe I do, but I said I don't need that kind of things, but if you could kind of teach me more business Japanese or kanji, so he'd teach me maybe a lot of those words that people in press would use that in everyday life you wouldn't use, and just trying to put myself in all those situations so I pretty much make a fool of myself when I'm either in front of just a few people or in front of my friends. So when it's the honban, when it's the real thing, I'm prepared. But yeah, still made a lot of mistakes. Like the coaches, they'll tell you what they're going to say. Important thing is always talking to the coaches or talking to the players before the meeting, so you're not hearing it for the first time in the meeting. Because if you hear something, you're like, oh, I don't really know what he's trying to say there, then it takes up time if you have to ask him, like, what do you mean here? So sometimes maybe they don't explain it as well as they could have as well, but it's your job to talk to them beforehand so you know exactly what the message is. So you're just learning all those things on the run. And yeah, like I said, it's just trial by fire. So the more mistakes you make, luckily I didn't make any major ones that, made it so they didn't want to re-sign me the next year. But after 2 years, I thought I was pretty, I was a bit more confident. And yeah, after those 2 years, I really felt like I wanted to give Coke 2 years at least of my time. Because back then, even now, there's not many rugby translators. So it's a profession that a lot of teams are kind of looking to fill. So I got a few people saying, oh, you've done it for a few years. Do you want to come to our team? But I said, oh, well, Coke really believed in me in these 2 years when no one else did. They kind of helped me grow. So I want to at least give them the same amount of time, 2 years. And that's maybe the big reason why I was there for 4 years all up. And then Coke, Mitsubishi had been talking to me for a couple of years. And after that fourth year, or during that fourth year, I was like, oh yeah, I've kind of repaid my dues. I want to try something else. And I ended up signing with Mitsubishi. And 2 weeks later, got announced that our team, Coca-Cola, is disbanding. So it was really lucky. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
How was it in Fukuoka? Like, you said you were the only translator there.
yeah.
Over the years, did they bring in someone else? Because that's a full-on job. Because how many foreigners did Coca-Cola have?
We'd have like 10 at least. I think some of them could kind of speak both. So, yeah, it's pretty full on in terms of all your days off. Like if you had a game on Saturday, Wednesday and Sunday would be your days off. But on Wednesday, it would be like, going to the bank with one of the coaches.
With Joe Kamana. Because he said last time he was there for an hour.
Mr. Joe Kamana.
Putting his $250,000
a week.
to the bank. Yeah.
But no, it was, a lot of, especially like guys like Joe, who he spent 5 years at Mazda.
Yeah.
No translator. So by the end of it, I think he was pretty much had to be the translator for them. So he never asked me for anything really. But guys who would come over for the first time ever, obviously it's pretty daunting. Like you don't know the language. They got their family here. Their kid's got a fever. They call me and they're like, oh, what should we do? So I'm like, oh, let's go to the hospital or the clinic. There's one, 5 minutes walk from your place. So let's go there. And then it's just doing all that stuff pretty much every, day off.
Is that part of your job description? Or you do that?
Kinda, but not, probably not. Like if you looked at the fine print and stuff, it wouldn't be. But especially in Fukuoka, you'd think the agents probably more do that.
Yeah.
But in Fukuoka, because we're so isolated, there's no agents who are based in Fukuoka. So they'd only come down from Osaka once a month or something. So all the other times, and the players, they see you every day. They've probably got a better relationship with me than they do the agent, who they can talk to on the phone whenever, but they don't see every day. And I know the kids, I know where they are, and I know their schedule a bit more. And I've got days off when they've got days off, so it's just easier for them to be like, my wife used to go to the dentist, and she's happy to go by herself, but the dentists are worried, they can't understand what she's saying, so they won't let her come in unless someone who speaks Japanese is with her. So a lot of times it wasn't even the foreigner who needed me, it was the establishment who had never had a foreign customer before, and they were like, no, we can't do this. Like, what if we make a mistake, kind of thing. So I pretty much just be there on my phone while they're, getting their teeth cleaned, and be like, oh, you just said to open your mouth, or you said to spit, that kind of stuff. So it was pretty full on. But
wow, you have to do all that? That's like being a coordinator. That's a full-time translation.
It seems like full on, my image of what a team translator would be is just you just see them on the field. But now that I think about it, when you go back, when they go back to their home, they might want to go to the doctors, or they might need to go to the bank or buy some furniture.
Yeah.
And they probably can't do that. And the closest person they can think of is the translator.
Yeah.
And you're in Coca-Cola by yourself?
Yeah. So I was the only translator.
And you're trying to do that for 10 people. Well, maybe some can do it on their own, but still, that seems like a full-on task to do.
I mean, I was living by myself back then, so it wasn't like I necessarily had anything to do on the days off.
Yeah.
And all the boys, they knew it wasn't necessarily in my job description, but
yeah.
I was happy to do it, and they always, would, I guess, normally feel bad that they needed that support, so they'd always shout me lunch or dinner or something, or always invite me around for dinner and stuff. So it was kind of more just a community kind of helping each other. But it was pretty sometimes you got, can you book us in for yakiniku or something, and then it's just having to how many, like you just get a message like,
is that including me?
yeah. It's like, can you book yakiniku for tonight? I'm like, firstly, how many kids, what time? And if they're with you, like it's sweet, like you call up and they're like, they can't do 6:30. But if they're not with you and I'm using the phone, I can't call them at the same time. So it's like, gotta hang up, call them. It's like, they can't do that. Can you do 6 o'clock? Then you got to call them up again. So had those kind of things where some of the boys, like, they were quite happy to, try. Like Joe would always do it himself, and they'd understand once you actually try and do it, it's like, I can do it. But I think if you have never done it before, it's pretty daunting. So I don't know. If I'm busy, obviously I'll be like, sorry, I've got this other thing. Like, I've got this translation I'm going to do. But if I'm not, if I'm just watching TV or, going for a walk or something, I'm happy. Like, I won't say, do it yourself, even if it's not in my job description. Like, I understand how hard it is if you don't know the language to do stuff. So, it was just a lot of that stuff off field. And then on the field, we had sometimes, unit training. So backs and forwards. So basically, the team was split up into 2 groups. So we'd have guys like Tim Lafayette, who is at Corby now, but he could speak both, so he'd sometimes
shout out to Tim. Jump on the den if you want. I see you. I know you're watching. Tim's like a real well-known rugby.
I mean, obviously Jay is a Skux, but do you know Skux? It's like kind of Ikemen kind of thing. But
good looking.
Good looking.
But Tim was almost like voted one of the best looking, most Skux rugby players as well, I think. So.
So then I guess we could bring him on the show and then see who is let the viewers.
I'm okay with that.
Vote in the comments. So he would kind of do it, but obviously that's not in his job as well. So I don't really like asking players to do it because they're thinking about their own job. Like in a training environment, they got to think, I've got to do this next. I got to do this next. But then they don't want to always be like, the coach said this, when they're trying to focus on their own job. So sometimes I'd pretty much just be doing shuttles. They'd always, for some reason, be like on the other side of the field. So the forwards are doing scrums and lineouts over here, and then I just hear a dog. So I'm just sprinting like around 100 meters and then do a quick translation for these guys, and these guys need a translation, so I'm just doing shuttles. It's good fitness.
Damn, that's quite a job description.
Yeah, well, like, as a rugby player, I've never played in a team with a translator, but I've seen teams with a translator, and it seems like a full-on job, especially if you're doing it by yourself. And Coca-Cola, at that time, they were in Division 2 or 3 or something like that at the time?
When we started, we were Div 1.
Yep.
So we had new coaches as well, and it was a bit like...
Did they not see the value in trying to invest in more translators? Because time-wise, it'd be more sufficient in terms of a team environment. Did they not want to invest in a translator? Because now that I'm hearing your story, that's a good investment to have, a translator, because say you're doing shuttles up and down, trying to go to the team. Because like if you can translate for their families at home, that's going to help their home situation, which is going to help their team.
Perform better, right?
Yeah. Instead of them like trying to call you when they know that it's not part of your job description, but they need the help. They still feel bad, and then if they can't do that, then they have to do it themselves, and then frustrated. Hey, Japan, I want to go home. Like, but if you can provide that type of comfort for them, it'll definitely generate towards the field and help with the team. But Coca-Cola didn't see any good investment in that, or
so I think like in terms of like obviously Coca-Cola worldwide is a pretty big company, but like on the rugby scene they weren't the richest company, and that's one of the reasons why they ended up being disbanded. But I think one of the reasons why I got the job in the first place was because I had no experience. I was probably a lot cheaper at the start than all the other people who...
Now you're worth millions, eh?
Millions of yen. But it's a very, I think, cost effective. And the people who kind of make the decisions maybe didn't really necessarily see the ins and outs. We'd go to camp and we had someone like from higher up in Coke come over, and he like actually commented like, "Oh, Doug, you know, looks like he's running around a lot, like working hard, like otsukare kind of thing." But that was, you know, it wasn't like, "Oh, yeah, we'll get you someone else to help," because some teams have that life support or sekat support. So those people, they kind of help a bit with the translation on the field, but their main job is to help the families off the field. Because yeah, like you said, you've got like for the players, they've got all these teammates who they're suddenly like with, but their families, sometimes they're real isolated, they're by themselves, and it can be quite tough sometimes. So yeah, some teams have that, but I think Coke, they, I guess, the money that they were using, they just want to use it in other parts and just trying to get, I guess, the best players they could with the minimum budget they had, kind of thing. So that was one of the struggles we had at Coke. Like every year, I think they were in the promotion relegation game for like 5-6 years in a row, kind of thing. But every year the company would be like, "Oh, we know you were 14th last year and you won by winning the stayed up, but we want you to be 8th this year, but we're not increasing your budget, or we're not giving you more resources," kind of thing. So that was the thing that was quite tough at Coke. You kind of had to get the results, and then they might give you more support, but they don't give you the support beforehand
to get the results,
because it's, I guess, they don't see it as an investment, or maybe they did in the past, but the team didn't deliver. I don't know. So yeah, it was quite. But that's all I knew. Like I didn't know anything else. I'd only ever worked by myself. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that. And then worked with foreign coaches. I think we had all up 3 foreign coaches in those 2 years, and then we dropped down to 2nd division. So those coaches were on 2-year contracts, I think, but I guess because we dropped, they were like, "Oh, until we go up, I guess they don't want to invest that much in the coaches, because foreign coaches normally cost more because they've got more international experience." So they all got cut or not re-signed, I guess. So then my job suddenly got way simpler, where I didn't have to translate any staff meetings. The only thing I'd translate on the field was actually on the field and team meetings. So I still had to do all the off-field stuff, but my time at work got a lot freer. So that's when I started these podcasts, because I was like, I could pretty much edit them in the staff room because no one needed translation in the staff room. And we'd have all these staff meetings, which I'd obviously listen to, but I didn't have to repeat them to anyone. So I was, and my 3rd and 4th year, I'd been in the same team for a while. So I wouldn't say I was getting bored, but I knew what I had to do to stay there. I felt like if the team had kept going, I could have stayed there for as long as I want, but it wasn't really pushing me. So I wanted to try something new, and I thought, I'm not that confident speaking, in front of a mic and stuff. So just throw myself in it and started a few podcasts.
Nice.
So how is your translation situation now, though, on a different team? Are there more other translators?
Technically, I'm the only translator.
Oh, okay.
But there's a few staff who are bilingual.
Oh.
So there's 2 coaches. One's half Japanese as well, so he can speak a bit of, or he can speak really good Japanese as well. So, but I don't really, it's kind of similar to the player. Like they've got their own job as a coach, so having to translate is sometimes not as efficient as it could be. So we got 2 coaches who do that for us. One guy who's an analyst who used to be a translator, but he moved to become an analyst. So they're the guys who pretty much just have the cameras on the field watching all our training sessions, and it's kind of like what I guess you do with your editing stuff. They edit all our training, so a player, if he pushes his name in a game, it'll show all the times he touched the ball or all the time he tackled someone. It's just a whole playlist of everything he's done. So we've got a few guys doing that, so obviously he's busy. So in general, I'm the translator who does all the main stuff. If we have to split it up and do different meetings, the other guys will help out. But in general, it's my role, I guess. So I've never really worked in a team that's actually got 2 people whose main role is a translator.
What is the most difficult part of being a sports translator, though?
I think a few things. The first thing I kind of struggled with was, firstly, like speaking loud. So speaking in front of people, and you've got to be quite, I guess, not demanding, but you've
confident.
Yeah. You've got to be. If the coach is angry, you don't have to yell exactly like him, but you've got to raise your voice a bit, because if you're real calm and the coach is angry, then there's that gap there.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was thinking the same thing, because like when I see coaches like Jamie Joseph, like splat at the boys, and then I think it was a podcast or something I was watching, and then the translator, he was having a one-on-one, like he was having a meeting with this guy, and he was yelling at him, and then the translator was yelling at him, and he was like, "Why are you yelling at me?" But then I was like, he was like, because he's got to, like, if this guy's yelling and then he's like, "Do your job, no, you do this," and this guy's, "Shigoto shite kudasai." It doesn't have the same effect. But he was like yelling at him too, and the guy was like, "Why you don't? I can punch you, I can't punch him." Like that's
it's I don't necessarily, if I try and go too emotive, then I feel like the most important thing is getting the point across. So if I'm like, kind of thing, and then what I'm saying is a bit different to the coach, then that defeats the purpose. So I think it's important to not have that gap, but still, I guess, stay calm enough to, be able to get that point across. So if the coach is yelling, then I'll say it more sternly, but I won't, kind of thing, because people probably be like, won't be able to take it's the most important thing is to take the message in so they can see the coach is angry. It's about how you get that point across. So that was one thing I kind of learned. And when I started, I was 23. Everyone else was older than me pretty much, apart from the first years. So it was also like the coach is older. He, can speak, even if he's, if he's a foreigner, he'll speak normally because we don't really have that kego as much. But I'm kind of like, should I say des and mas and stuff? Like, even though it's not really me saying it, I'm just the machine that's, I'm the filter that the coach is talking through. So should I speak politely as well? Like, kind of thing? Because the coach is 40, the player's 26, I'm 23. What language should I use, kind of thing? So it was about trying to get that balance. So at the start, I would just des mas everything, but just kind of say it. Not angrily, but like, a bit more emotively. But recently, I think with especially Kiwis, like our humour and the way we use words and the way, I guess, we're very creative, and I think the way
that's a nice way to say it.
So,
I was wondering what you're going to say.
There's it's kind of famous in our team, but one of our coaches said in a backs units, he was talking about something, and then he's like, but sometimes you got to make chicken soup out of chicken shit. And if I said that directly in Japanese, like, do you know what he would mean if he said that?
Kind of, but not exactly.
It's so I think it was a defense drill, and it was like, this guy, it wasn't his job to tackle this guy, but someone else missed the tackle, and it's pretty much just saying sometimes you got to make it work however you can.
The situation.
So you don't have anything to make chicken soup, you've only got its feces.
Yeah.
But you've got to make it like,
make it work out kind of thing.
You're hungry, you got to make chicken soup out of chicken shit, which is all you have. So pretty much whatever cards you're dealt, you got to make it work, is what he was saying. But if you say that, torigara soup or skudunani, what's going on or something, then everyone like, why are you talking about chickens? But in English, it's quite, especially Kiwis, I think it's quite normal to use that figurative language, and people just kind of understand what they're talking about because of the context. So that stuff, like the coach, he speaks a bit of Japanese as well. So Glax will just be like, he'll say something, then look at me, and if I don't use the same like words, he'll be like, hey, you didn't say chicken, kind of thing, and just not to be a dick or anything, just because it's funny. You'd be like, oh, that's not what I said, kind of thing. So that's the stuff I guess it's hard to get the point across in a way that the Japanese people get the same meaning as a foreign person will get it. Because if you say it exactly how it's said, then they won't get it. So it's about making sure that at the end of the day, the two parties have the same image in their head. So that was the biggest learning for me, I guess.
Yeah, another thing about it, I remember when I was in Japan camp, and they had a translator and a real Kiwi coach, and he was like, boys, work hard, you take his head off. When you see him on the ground, put your fist in his head.
Oh my God.
And the translator was like, 頑張ります。もう一生懸命頑張ってください。最後までやりきるまで頑張ってください。But I was thinking in my head, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. But like, he was like looking at him like, do I tell them that during the game punch them in the head? Take their head off? But I think that's the balance that you have to try and figure out, because he was a Kiwi. He's not saying like literally take his head off. He's telling him, go hard, work hard for each other.
Show that aggression.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
show that aggression. And he's like, looking at him like, and he knew because he had spoken for like a minute.
Yeah.
And he just translated it into 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And he was like looking at him like, did you actually translate what I said?
Yeah.
Like he was a little bit mad because and then I was like, wow, yeah. So it must be hard to find that balance of, especially how many, most of the coaches you work with, New Zealanders or different cultures you're working with?
This year we got 3 Kiwis. They've kind of worked all over the world, but 3 Kiwis. So that kind of helps me out. If it's like South African coaches who I don't think I've really worked with too many, but completely different culture. So, I can't speak Afrikaans to, begin with. So it's a very, I'm like, sorry, I don't know what that means. I know Morda, which is good morning kind of thing. That's about it. So it's very handy to have Kiwi coaches. I think Aussie coaches are probably similar. Like I'd be able to do the same thing with Aussies, but just knowing that culture is very, helpful. But then it's just, the biggest thing is making sure that the players, when they get on the field, they're all clear. And the best way to do that is sometimes to not say exactly what the person said, to say what they mean. Even if that, because, there's so many ways you can say something and be aggressive. But most of the times in Japanese, there's not that many, ways that you'd say it that don't sound weird. So a lot of things I would say, koro, aite o korose kind of thing, kill them kind of thing, which shows the same aggression as, the coach is trying to say. And the players know that. And you don't actually say, go kill them. You say, korosu kire, with the intent of, hurting them kind of thing. So they know that you're not trying to punch them in the head. So it's just that balance, I think,
Doesn't it frustrate you as a translator? Because I have this experience a lot where the person you're translating from speaks for hours.
Yeah.
Not hours, but that's being too over dramatic. But a minute.
For years, yeah.
Not putting period in between.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel?
I'm pretty when I started in my first year, because the coach knew it was my first time, he'd kind of go sentence, and I go sentence, and sentence. But press conferences is just the whole answer. So it'd go for a minute, 2 minutes sometimes. So I used to take a pad and just write, but I just wasn't that good at taking notes, because I didn't know what the best way to take notes was. I was real slow at writing in Japanese, but I'm speaking Japanese after that. So if I write in English, I've got to translate it on the paper. So that I kind of struggled with that a bit. But as I kind of got used to it, especially new coaches who aren't used to translators, they'll forget that they need to stop for the translator. So they'll just talk. And then out on the field, I don't have a pad with me. And I don't really work well with a pad anyway. So then I think the biggest thing that's helped me is just knowing that you don't have to say it word for word. Word for word doesn't actually work that well. So it's just kind of the ideas are the most important thing. So if they're talking for a minute, and because I know the contents, I know what we're trying to do on the rugby field. I've listened to the coaches speak all year. I know what they're expecting. So I can kind of be like, this player didn't do this. Or, sometimes I know that we're trying to practice our defense, but the player is, doing something that doesn't help our defense. So I know that the coach is going to say this. I can predict it. So I just listen to the main ideas. And then even if it's, a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, I'm not necessarily thinking about the, however many words he said. It's just these ideas and this is what it means, and just kind of building that story in my head. And then I'll just, say it. And sometimes I'm not sure. If it's too long, I might miss a few things, but I think the coaches understand that if it's too long, then it's kind of up to them to make it shorter. So,
what about going from the rugby field to the press conference to important meetings or staff? Because that'll probably be 3 different types of Japanese languages you have to use.
My keigo is getting a little bit better, but I think having a face that in Japan looks foreign kind of gives you a bit of a pass as well. So the thing I've kind of focused on the most is making sure I get the point across, making sure and knowing that when I'm speaking, people don't think it's me. Whatever I'm saying, it's the same as it's coming out of the coach's mouth. So if I say something, bad, then it's, I didn't say it, the coach said it kind of thing. So just having that responsibility. So not obviously going informal, but yeah, I don't want to try and go formal so much that what I'm saying, doesn't make sense. Where I'm trying to use, in English, it'll be like trying to use too many scientific words or too many big words that it's like, what are you trying to say kind of thing. So I think the most important thing is getting the point across, but doing it in a polite way, which might not be, full keg or that a full Japanese person might use, but it's still, I guess, polite enough that people understand what we're trying to say. And also the coach isn't actually saying things really formal in English either. So I think bringing that across as well. Like a lot of the Japanese coaches, like sometimes they will use formal language, sometimes they won't use as much formal language. So it's not the same as people speaking in parliament as stuff. So but yeah, so it's I think I try and not worry myself too much about it. Like trying to improve there, but it's not the be all end all.
What about your current situation in Sagamihara, Mitsubishi? How do you like that now compared to when you were in a Coca-Cola? Is it better, worse, or
I think
what's it like there?
Well, I got the opportunity at Mitsubishi because I was able to work 6 weeks at Sunwolves. So
tell us about that, Sunwolves. That must have been a really good opportunity.
It was it was pretty intense, it was. So basically, the Sunwolves at the time, because it was like different schedule to the top league, as it was called back then. They just suddenly asked me. I think one of their GMs or team directors of the Sunwolves was working at Sanex, so he knew our head coach at Coke, and he was like, "Can your translator?" I think originally he said, "Can you come for 2 weeks just to help out?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sweet, like happy days," because they were struggling to find people because all the translators were already with teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, I must just be the assistant or something. I tell the guy, I'm like, so what's my actual role? And he's like, oh no, you're like head translator. You're like the only translator translating everything. And I was like, this is like, at the time at least, it was, the top level of club rugby pretty much in the world.
The Sunwolves team, when they became introduced, it was and they were going to be in the top league of the world, pretty much. The biggest league of rugby there is.
Obviously, you've got like the European stuff, which is big as well, but especially Southern Hemisphere, at least, it's like the top, or the guys who represent Aussie, NZ, and South Africa, even Argentina then, are all, part of it. So I was part of the Sunwolves in maybe their second to last year. But yeah, pretty much got there. They flew me out to Melbourne for like a day. Then I went straight to Singapore, and like the first hardest part was trying to learn everyone's names, but it was like 80% foreigners, so it was a lot different to what I was doing at Coke. It was still Japanese to English, but I was just speaking to like 10 Japanese players, not the whole team, so kind of just whispering as the coaches were talking, because most of the people understood it. But yeah, it was just a whole different like ballpark instead of in terms of like how pro it was compared to Coke. Coke, most of the guys were employees, only worked half of the day. Here we were 7 o'clock coach meeting all the way up until like 7 at night, just doing all these one-on-ones with players. And again, it was like what the Dynaballs are now. I'm the only translator, but there are a few people who could speak both. So if I'm needed at 2 places at once, someone will help out, but otherwise I'm the one translating. So it was it was hectic in terms of like the days, but such a good experience. Like I learned so much. I didn't get to go to South Africa and stuff, but went to Aussie for a day, Singapore twice, and then New Zealand for 2 weeks. So it was amazing experience, and I was really hoping they were keen to keep me on for the rest of the year, because every time you change the translator, you got to start again. Like they got to learn all the names and all the calls. So they were like, you're doing a good enough job. We want you to kind of stay for the rest of the season. And our Coke season didn't start until after they finished, so I was like, surely they'll say yes. But we had like a pre-season cup comp, which didn't really mean that much. It was more just like for the younger players to get a chance to play. And we had like 4 foreigners or something, and I was thinking it would be like similar to, I guess, you, where if you're in the deep end without a translator, you'll learn the language, and these aren't the most important games. So I was hoping Coke would be like, it'll be a good opportunity for me to get better, come back as a better translator, and the foreign players to learn a bit of Japanese. But the coach didn't see it that way. They were still paying me, so they were like, no, you got to come back. So I got cut short, but those 6 weeks it was hectic, but really good experience there.
That's awesome, man. What is the day-to-day life of a translator like, though? Because I'm, especially in sports, I know your schedule is probably a bit different. You probably wake up a little bit early, you get there a little bit early, and you probably stay a lot later. What's your day-to-day life like as a translator?
So yeah, like every team, their schedule is different, and how many foreign coaches, players they've got, kind of works around that. But like say for Coke, at the start we'd get in, like we wouldn't have to get in until about lunchtime because that's when the foreign coaches got in. Pretty much get in just before the foreign coaches and leave. Well, my idea was I'll leave after them, because if someone wants to talk to them, if I'm not there, then they can't talk to them, and it doesn't matter how good a coach they are, if they can't get their teachings across to the players, then the company's wasting money on them. So I always just made a rule, like as soon as the last coach is gone, I'm allowed to leave. And so yeah, at Coke wasn't too bad the first few years. Then they started doing 7 o'clock gym session before the players went to work, and then 4 o'clock after that. So I'd come in at like 6. Then we'd have like pretty much 5 hours in the middle of the day off, and then back in. But some it was like 7 till 7, kind of just because you're going across the world, and you're playing all these places. You got to organize all the stuff. All these people are trying to learn new moves and stuff. It was pretty full on. And then Dynaballs, that's our first meeting in the morning is either 7 or 7:30. So I normally get in about 6. Coaches, staff, we might do a bit of like you don't have to, but just a gym session before the players come in, just a free gym. And then I pretty much leave normally about 6ish maybe at night. Not working like full time the whole time, but it's just I don't get to choose when I'm busy really. Like if players want to talk to the coach, then I'm using. If they don't, then the last 3 hours I might just be sitting there trying to do some work on my laptop. So it's it's a job where I can't just say, oh, I'm just going to take these 2 weeks off or whatever. It's just whenever someone needs me, like on a weekend or on a day off at 8 p.m, the general manager might be like, oh, I just want to talk to the head coach about something. I need to call him. Can you join the call? Hopefully I haven't been drinking, which I don't really drink at home, so normally it's sweet, but just suddenly in a call with 2 minutes notice kind of thing. So it can really change, but it's it can be the busiest job in the world, but sometimes it can be really cruisy as well.
Do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy being a translator?
It's
Is that what you see yourself doing long term, or at a certain point you want to move into something else?
I really enjoy like being part of a team, being able to travel Japan. Every day I'm out on the field, especially in pre-season when we don't have enough players, like maybe because the senior boys haven't come back yet, and if it's not like a full contact session, I'll just join in so I get to play rugby at a high level. And it's like, man, this is awesome. Like,
give me a contract. Sign me up, so coach, come on.
And then they're like, you're 70 kgs, no thank you, kind of thing. It's very like, it's just, I love rugby. I love being outside. I don't really enjoy being inside the whole day. So, and then just, get to travel all around Japan, been to Hokkaido for camps, been all the way, down to Kagoshima and stuff, and Kyushu, and you don't get heaps of time off, but you at least get, after our last meeting, I'll go for a walk for a couple of hours and just see the sights, or go for a run in the morning and get to see, Japanese castles and stuff and try the food. So I really, love that. And I enjoy the translating part. Like, I think I don't really enjoy the off-field stuff as much. Like, I like helping people, but I think it's not something I'm as good at as I am in terms of the on-field rugby stuff, because, when people start talking to me about medical terms, because, someone's sick, I'm like, oh, I don't really know what that means, kind of thing sometimes. So, I definitely enjoy the on-field stuff. I don't know if I'll do it for the rest of my life, and I think in 5-10 years, phones will be able to do it better than I could do it with all the AI stuff. So, if you ever need an assistant on the translating world, let me know. Oh, sorry, the podcast world. I'll hold your cables or something.
So you mentioned podcasts. You're doing podcasts right now, 2 podcasts. So what made you want to start the podcast?
So the biggest thing was I started with my Japanese one, which is kind of on hiatus because I'm a bit busy with the translation stuff at Mitsubishi. But I like whenever I was translating at interviews and like with the reporters and stuff, I always felt like they'd ask the same questions. So they'd ask like, what's your best point? Like, oh, please watch my tackle because I like tackling, or like watch me jackal, or for you it might be, you know, my ball carry or something, like your physicality. And I just thought, like, I don't know, everyone's just almost being put into a type where you don't really know about them as a person, and you don't hear about why they wanted to get into rugby, or rugby's not a major sport in Japan. So in NZ, whenever people ask Kiwis, like, why'd you? It's like, because everyone did. It's almost like maybe baseball over here. Everyone plays baseball or soccer. So, I wanted to know more about the players, and I thought if people know more about them, then they might become more fans and might get more rugby fans. So I started the Doug's Rugby Podcast, real original name. But I pretty much just interviewing all the Japanese players, like coaches and stuff at Coca-Cola, just because I want to learn more about them as well. And I didn't know heaps about them as people necessarily. So started that. And then your previous guest, Joe Kamana, was like, man, we should do one like for English speaking people, because a lot of people message saying like what's happening with the rugby over there, especially after the World Cup. People wanted to know, but everything's in Japanese, and not many teams were showing things for like foreign audiences. So I thought, yeah, that'll be a great idea. We've got some great rugby players in our team as well, so just every week started doing that with them. And like I said, in my last few years, I had a lot of time at Coke, so I had time to do podcasts, so I could do 2. Now I'm barely getting 1 out, and I made the error of calling it Japan Rugby Weekly. So I'm like, damn, I've got to get something out weekly, and it's quite hard to, like, I feel bad asking people to come on because I know they've got busy lives, and, you know, for a amateur podcast, like, why should they take up their time to, like, everyone's always, when I ask them, they're like, oh yeah, like, I love to come on, but I just feel real awkward. So I've kind of struggled with that part of it, but yeah, really enjoy just speaking to people and trying to get, you know, the more rugby's known overseas and in Japan, then the more support all the teams get, the more support they get, then the more backing they get from the companies, and we can make it a bigger event, and, you know, it can really become one of the major sports in Japan. So I feel quite passionate about trying to grow that level. But yeah, it's something I've just learned by doing. It's like my translation is just faking it till I make it, and a lot of things I don't know, and just doing only audio at the moment. But it's I definitely enjoy speaking in front of a mic now. I used to hate it, but I still hate the editing part, because I hate listening to myself. And also it's just, you know, it takes like 1 hour like this, you know, take me like, you know, 5-6 hours to edit. So yeah, I'm too slow at it, and that's the part that's kind of holding me back from wanting to do more things with it, because it's quite busy being a translator sometimes. So
What is your goal for your podcast?
Podcast? I don't know. Like at the moment, it's all, I guess, funded by Doug.
Douglas Productions.
Yeah.
So your team doesn't like help you out with that?
No, it's got nothing to do with the team. I just kind of started it myself. So I'm very much in the red in terms of the gear. Like I know with podcasts, like the voice is a pretty important thing. So I wanted to make sure I had the mics and everything. So yeah, I don't know. But it's not necessarily to make a living out of it or anything. But it'll be cool if, it helped a lot more people know about Japan rugby, and if we could kind of build a community about it. And just, I guess if it kind of made itself a bit more self-sustainable, where if I could get to the point where I didn't have to do everything on it, then you could put more stuff onto the guests and the content and stuff, and making it better. Because at the moment, pretty much the biggest thing that's hamstringing it is that after you finish, got to edit it, and got to make sure it comes out by this time. And because of that, you've only got these days where you can try and get guests on, and if the guests are busy, then say, I'm doing another one solo kind of thing. So it's very I think the biggest thing is having to do it yourself kind of hinders it a little bit, but I also enjoy the challenge of learning. Like I would never know how to edit things if I didn't do this. So it's been a great challenge. I don't know if I necessarily have like, this is where I have to get to, but yeah, like when I started translating, I wanted to have a goal, so I just wanted to would never know if I'd get there, but I wanted to be like the best rugby translator in Japan, which isn't something you can really, I guess, measure. But I thought if I don't have that kind of goal, then I'll be happy here. And then if I'm like, oh yeah, I've got this job here, then I won't keep growing. So just trying to put pressure on myself. And I think it's the same with a podcast.
Haven't you ever thought about like on your team right now currently, they don't. I'm pretty sure they don't have any like social network stuff. Maybe they don't do anything YouTube or anything. Right?
So they've got YouTube and stuff, but not in English.
Oh, okay.
But if you go through the team, then you got to go through that company, which makes it like I guess a lot harder. Like it'll be a lot harder for me to even like talk to Jay, who's not part of the team. Like I think if you go through the team too much, then it's very much I'd feel bad promoting other teams members, So it's like it's supposed to be about the Dynabors, but I might invite someone from a different team, and it's like even though rugby's not really like that, like everyone's off the field after the game. Like you are good friends with a lot of the people from every other team pretty much, but I think it wouldn't be maybe right to use, it might just be me how I think about it, but to use like say Mitsubishi as a worldwide company to try and just use them when it wouldn't 100% benefit maybe the team. Like if it was just solely about the Dynabors, then maybe I'd be like, oh, would you like to do something? But if it's not, then I feel like it'll be a bit harder to talk about other things. So I guess that is one reason why, even if it doesn't, help me in terms of being as big a podcast, just being a bit more free in what I can talk about is probably something that I think is important.
Have you asked your team?
So we've talked a little bit about doing stuff, but if we did do stuff, it would be like, so I use the players and stuff. So I've talked to them about, can I use our players because they're not my property or anything. And whatever we say whenever we talk about Dynabors, if it's good or bad, it's, telling a story about the team. So and we've got to make sure that they're happy with it as well. So I talked to them a little bit about that. We're kind of talking about maybe doing some things, but not so much on my stuff, but more on their side of it. So because they've got YouTube and stuff, maybe doing a few more things on their end, just using a bit of my equipment and just, helping out a bit there. But
do you think it's important though to, especially social media, in terms of just say Mitsubishi had their own podcast or they had someone come in to help talk about their podcast, like DaDen, maybe reach out. But do you see the importance of having something like that?
Yeah.
Like in Japan, rugby teams, I don't really see many their social media stuff going off.
Yeah.
Apart from like Suntory recently, where they have Inside Suntory.
Oh yeah.
Where they tell their story through videos. They don't have a podcast, but they kind of interview sometimes during their Inside Suntory YouTube video. Do you see the important? Do you think it's very important for these teams to be able to tell their story, whether it's within their own team or they outsource it or something like that?
So I think that's like a massive part. It's something that the foreign teams probably do quite well.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is because they are their own brand. Like all the teams over here are company teams. So a lot of things that they want to do, sometimes the higher ups who have nothing to do with rugby, but they're like the owners. They're like, oh, no, we don't want to invest in that or something. But like at Coke for the last 2 years, we did something similar because our analyst, he saw a few teams do it. Like he saw, I think England did something like their national team, and he loved English like style of rugby, so he started doing something like that. But it was a shame. Like, so we did 2 years. We did pretty much weekly shows like Suntory are doing, and I would do, and then I would kind of just do the transcription, so the translation, the subtitles of it, so people who wanted to understand what it was like in a Japanese company team would understand. But then when the team went, broke or disbanded, all the YouTube and stuff got deleted. So all that work that this analyst did, just was for nothing almost. So that was a real shame. But a lot of teams do some things, but it's just because it's all in Japanese. Like when you type in Japanese rugby, it doesn't always come up on YouTube. Like Mitsubishi, technically, we have our own YouTube channel. We also do this thing with, I think it's JCOM. So we kind of outsource something every month. They do a TV show with us. So our boys go out to the area around Sagamihara, and they will say, oh, these are our favorite spots to eat. And then while they're eating, it's like, oh, what do you do in your days off and stuff? So they have started doing those things, which I think are real important. But I think it's like people watch them, but because rugby's still quite minor in terms of, you've got 120 million people, but you've got so many sports. Like at the moment, the basketball World Cup just finished, the volleyball World Cup's on, and people love volleyball over here. People are wondering what Otani Shohei's doing, or the soccer stuff, or the baseball, the 12 baseball teams over here, and then like high school baseball, that, and then rugby. They're just trying to go up the ranks there. So,
but I think like podcasting or YouTubing those stories, I think that's a point of difference. That no one knows what Shohei Tana does behind the doors.
Yeah.
No one knows what practices the girls' volleyball team. No one knows the journey that the men's basketball team took to get to there.
Yeah.
They just see the end results, and like we said before, when the team's doing good, everyone loves them.
Yeah.
If they didn't do well at either of those, no one would care. But if you can provide that backstory, that's a point of difference. And I think it's such an untapped market in Japan, especially sports and rugby. It being such a protected sport. But do you think the people higher up, they kind of restrict that? Because they're the ones at the end of the day make the call for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Do you think they restrict the exposure of stuff like that? Or?
Well, I don't know if it's like necessarily because people don't want it to spread or whatever, but I think there's a lot of, because the higher ups, the top people in the league, the union and everything are quite, like, I guess, just naturally in Japan, everyone's a bit older. So I think a lot of things that you don't understand, you're like, well, I don't know that, but I know this way. So this is how we'll do it. And it's kind of, a lot of things are done, not only in rugby, but I think in a lot of things, this is how it's done because it's always been done that way and it has treated us well. So I think it's almost like our job as the younger generation to show that there are these ways of doing things. And I think you see a lot more of that in a lot of things, like, all these social media things are going off and influencers and stuff are, on TV, on national Japanese TV now, when 10 years ago it wouldn't be those guys. It's always the guys from the boy bands or the actors and actresses, but because all the younger generation love those influencers, those people on TV, and I think it's important for us to show that different side to the older generation because they only know what they know, and it can be frustrating sometimes when you're like, oh, foreign countries have given us a good example, this is how you can do something, but it takes so long to kind of get it going in Japan. But I think, like I said, it's our job to, through these kind of things, show that it can work, and for the fans or the supporters, the community, to get behind these things. If it's something that they like, they have to show that they support it, because if you don't, then they don't survive, and then the status quo never changes. So I think it is a really untapped market, but I think it's we have to show that it is an untapped market. It's not like we can just say, the older generation have to do it this way because we believe it. We have to prove it to them, I think. So I think what you guys are doing is a great thing there, and you going on different things. I'm sure Bachelorette was something that you necessarily, 5 years ago wouldn't have thought you'd do, but because of that, it's really grown. I think rugby in Japan, a lot of people who never knew about rugby, I guess, would have definitely been a fan of it. And even through this isn't a rugby podcast, but guys like Joe coming on here showing that, what a good guy he is and what kind of characters there are in rugby, it will definitely grow that audience. So I agree. I think these things are important, and I think people doing hard work like you guys are the ones who are really leading the way there. So I'm just grateful to be able to sit here, and I don't know if anything of what I just said made sense, but
it's been awesome to hear. Like, I've never heard of the story or the behind the scenes story of a translator. Like, I just see it. That's all you see. And there's just this guy that's just roaming around screaming after the coach. That's all I knew. But to hear that there's more to that, you don't do just on the field. You help the families go to the doctors. You help book them to yakiniku. That's been awesome to hear for myself, and a massive insight. And I hope that everyone watching can look in that, if you're at a job. If you're traveling from America, New Zealand, Australia to Japan, and you see a translator, just think that they're more than just that translator. These guys do a lot for you. And I think it's been an awesome insight, and we're very thankful for you to telling your story. And that's the whole meaning behind DaDen. That's what we want. That's what we've been wanting to do, and to tell your story. And it's been awesome to hear it. And I definitely think that it's been a great insight for not just us, but for people watching.
Well, I think it's like as translator, like I said, behind the scenes, like the press conference stuff, they take a picture of the coach and the captain, and you're next to them, but you're never in the frame, because I'm pretty much like a machine that they put one language through, then I spit out the other language. So you're not someone who, should be looking for the limelight or anything. So it's quite, I guess, new to be able to be on this side of the mic, I guess, where you're talking about yourself. But no, I really appreciate it. And if anyone ever wants to, is interested in going into that kind of field, it's so fun, especially if it's something you're translating for something that you enjoy. Like I love rugby, being able to be around the guys, and you just learn so much about the sport by repeating it so many times. And I don't think I could continue it if it was about something I didn't like. So I think it's just make sure you enjoy what you do. But thanks for having me on again, and hopefully I didn't talk too much. But arigato. It's been a great experience.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving the time to come. You're very busy, I'm sure.
Sometimes,
even during the weekends, they probably call you up, hit you up at the last minute. So thank you for coming. As always, thank you guys for watching. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe and like button, and hit that bell icon to get more notification of the show coming up. Anyways, if you have any last word, Jayden.
Very thankful for you, Dougie, coming on to the episode today. You always say that you like to be behind the scenes, you don't want to be in the limelight, but I think it's been very important to put you in that limelight, because you deserve that limelight. People don't see the hard mahi, the hard work that you do behind the scenes. And I think I'm very thankful for the DaDen to be able to provide that limelight for you, because I think it's well deserved. And it's been awesome listening to your story. Wish the Dynabores all the best for their upcoming season. Hope they do well. Dynabores, hit us up at DaDen if you. But I'm very grateful, and I hope that I definitely don't think this will be the last time we see of each other. And thankful for your time, and all the best for the future going forward.
Cheers. We're in the same community, and
100%.
like we're not obviously, you're never fighting against each other. We're trying to lift each other up. So go hard at the Atlas Stars as well.
Up the stars. But appreciate it. Want to love and leave you. Thank you. See ya.
Arigato.